have sanity is what we're hoping for.
Yes, VR fans, how the devil are you? I hope you're keeping well. So glad you can make it back here for Brainman Virtual Reality Reviews. Really what I'm going to do on this particular episode is take you through a few of the experiences that I've created, because at the end of last week after the review I showed you how to storyboard in VR. So without further ado, let's go from reality to virtual reality. So as at the end of the last episode I showed you a little bit of how you can storyboard in Tilt Brush, I thought it would make sense to actually show you the end result. In my first 3 months of learning to use Unity, I made one experience, the one that I just last week showed you in the storyboard. But over here, this is an explanation of the change. So there's quite a recent brain training study that came out looking at the brain changes that take place in drummers as they learn their discipline. So I thought, why not have awesome African drum music? This little brain's bouncing for these drums. Obviously I didn't get around to making proper looking drums, but these cylinders will serve. And this is just to show that this patch of the brain, you've got up there parts of the brain that control legs and waist and chest, so this sort of body. Then you've got the fingers, hands and arms up there, and then down here tongues, lips and face. So the point is, when you're learning to drum, by copying and practicing and playing along, this is the brain area that gets a real workout. But in particular, it turns out from that neuroscience paper that it's the corpus callosum, linking left and right sides of the brain, that gets bolstered, that gets structurally, physically more powerful in the brain area that connects the hands and arm areas of the left and right brain, so that you can play beats with one hand in relation to the beats played by the other hand. And then over here, finally, we'll listen to this one, so you get the vibe of what this kind of experience up here would be. Ah, how relaxing. For many years, most people thought that meditation was a thing for monks or New Age travellers. But a recent science paper published in Nature Reviews Neuroscience has gathered together all the available evidence. They concluded that regularly practicing meditation is good for your physical health, your mental health, and it improves your cognitive performance. It actually physically changes this part of the brain. One outcome of these changes is ego reduction, which helps people to see the world more objectively and in turn helps them not to take things so personally. It even improves a person's capacity to self-soothe, manage stress, and regulate all their emotions more effectively. This is the final part of the story. There is nothing else new to see. So why not just stand there, or perhaps sit cross-legged under the screen if you want, and do a few minutes of meditation yourself. All you have to do is focus your mind on your breath. It's not difficult. Just notice your breath going in and then out again. You get the gist. Okay. So here I'm just giving people some simple guidance in mindfulness meditation. I've actually led a few at conferences where I talk about the neuroscience of meditation and to motivate people to do it, and then I do body scan meditation with them where I guide them through an exercise where they do it for half an hour and they shift their attention from their toes all the way up their body to their head, out to their fingertips. And the idea is that the benefit of meditation is if you're in the past, if your head is always dwelling on things that happened in the past or the future, then that's quite stressful. Whereas if you're focusing on your breath or the sensations coming from different parts of your body, then you are in the present moment by definition, so long as your mind doesn't wander off, but that's fine, you just bring it back to what you're supposed to be focusing on. And it's that practice of focusing your breathing to be in the present moment. It just gives you a break from the stresses associated with the past. And that's basically the message of this part of the brain. And it really does change in experienced practitioners the prefrontal cortex areas involved in important functions. Okay, so this bit I did not show you a storyboard of, but downstairs this might be a little bit more familiar. So here's the wonderful world I created in lower parts of the brain. And you know, obviously I hadn't mastered the textures and the materials. I just chucked any old thing I could find because I was trying to work this mechanic. So trying to get something which can crank, which can rotate, is actually harder than it might at first seem. And I'm really happy with how this works. Like, yes, it's not aesthetically appealing, but I wanted it to function. For example, this is a gaze activated interaction. Grab the handle, pull the trigger, wind clockwise, okay? Grab the handle, pull the trigger. Yours truly on the harmonica. And this is the moment of pop goes the weasel. So here we go. I think you know what's going to happen.
Oh no! What have you done?
Ah!
You idiot! Oh, this is a catastrophe. Oh, you've got to done it now, haven't you?
So a little bit of comedy. As a child, I loved dominoes, so once I learned how to do the physics, I had to have a domino alley. That is the moment that the marbles fly. They don't fly out of here. I decided I'd have this lever system. And you can't see this on telly, but this is positional sound. So you can hear that the sounds are coming from that direction. And then basically once these come to your feet, there's little to do other than push them off into the wall. Right, so that's experience number one. And that was what I was up to 3 months ago. So I have improved dramatically in more recent times, even if I do say so myself. But you know, building on the knowledge I gained during that particular project there, which is admittedly rudimentary, I moved on in leaps and bounds this last 2.5, 3 months, and you'll see that it's not perfect, you know, the productions. But it's also not too bad. Not too bad at all. So this is the final chapter of the 1909 sci-fi book called The Machine Stops. It's quite a famous one. And this is the room that the person lives in. So in this one, you don't have to use that teleportation system. I made my own thumbstick joystick control. So teleportation and thumbstick control are reputedly, on the basis of many experiments, the ones least likely to cause motion sickness, which was a major problem in VR over the first 40 years that it existed. But when you're able to move a little bit on your own and a little bit under the control of the joystick, whoa, you know, so you can kind of explore the room. You can explore the room. So I always say it's important to actually physically move in space. That's one of my top 5 tips. Number 1 top 5 tip is always drink water. If you're even just a slight bit dehydrated, it impacts on your cognitive power and therefore your ability to immerse yourself in the virtual reality world. Coffee, which has neuroprotective effects. Number 3 is move around, clear the space and actually use the space. Virtual reality is significantly boosted by physical movement in your real play space. Number 4 is don't play for too long. VR is incredibly addictive. I think it has the capacity to engender neuroplastic change, which means it will change your brain. Fifth one, yeah, wear loose-fitting clothing, sweat from your arms, your legs, wear shorts if it's hot summertime, if you're doing a particularly energetic thing. Because what you need to avoid at all costs is getting sweat on your forehead, because that ends up dripping down, steaming up your goggles. And there's nothing like steamy lenses to break the illusion. Okay, so I think we've figured out where the edge of the room is. As you can see, there's not much to do. It's pretty obvious that this illuminated button needs pressing. So we've got this funny little dot hovering above the finger, and that's just to make it really clear that that's a thing that interacts with stuff. So, bringing the lights on, very, very nice. What does this button do? This is how you have a shower when you're in the machine. You never leave your room, you do everything from here. We wanted to give people an experience of the room working properly, doing things that one would expect, and then when the machine starts breaking down, we can get a sense that, something's starting to go wrong. Speaking of which, this beautiful bed has come out of the floor now, but then when it goes away, clearly there's something wrong. So it's not the subtlest of clues that something's going wrong. But here we've got another important sensory contribution. We've got the sound. So this is something I'm very proud of, because this is now a maze that we're going into. We're escaping our room because it's gone wrong, and we're on the run. And these are proximity triggered pillars. When you get close to them, they drop. These ones, unbeknownst to the user, don't drop until after a delay, a longer delay than the others. These ones all go immediately. What's that? A neighbour who appears to be in distress. Oh, mate, you're trapped.
Someone get me out.
I just don't know what I can do for you, old boy. I really don't. I offer you my sympathies, but I must continue to explore. So the sound was courtesy of some colleagues in the sound design team, and it really changes the experience. Like, I've been through this maze thousands of times, probably, maybe hundreds. But until the sound got dropped in, and this is all bespoke, this was all created especially for our needs. You've got this lovely theme tune in the background. Got dead ends. Down here it gets a bit gnarly. So again, that's 3D sound, and you can tell which wall they're behind, because it's much louder in this ear than this ear. The joy of 3D sound. So obviously we could have made this maze just endless, have people getting stuck in here forever, but hopefully they'll remember having gone past this trap before. So there's a landmark, the crawling trapped person, whose name is McFadden, I decided arbitrarily. And then there's nothing to see in there, another dead end. And so this, in the lighting, gives you a clue a little bit, that hopefully the user will recall they haven't been anywhere near green lighting. And then, what is this? So these people have responded to the emergency by doing Tai Chi, by praying in the traditional sense, and these people seem to be a bit upset. So I can hear Greek, I can hear Chinese, Italian, and this is me, but I put it really quiet so it wouldn't dominate. He's just muttering. But he's saying, God is the machine is God. God is the machine is God. Can you hear it? God is the machine is good. Something like that. So the idea is that these people that you've stumbled upon are responding to the final breakdown of the machine by redoubling their efforts to curry favour with the God. They're praying to God to give them, praying to the machine to switch back on basically and carry on providing for their needs. Hopeless. You need to save your skin. So this is scene 1 was the room. Scene 2 is this mirror maze where you can put your finger on the top, move your head, put your finger on the top, move your head, let go of. So you can kind of move forward, backwards, left and right, but I advise people just to hit the forward button and move their head. So the machine finally breaks down. And who are these up front? Well, the two main characters are called Vashti and Kuna.
I'm here, Mother.
Is this truly the end?
Vashti's the mother,
For us, yes.
Kuna's the son.
But I'm not afraid.
Will the others make it?
Yes. I have seen them, talked with them, loved them. I can't promise when, whether it's tomorrow or the day after, but one day the homeless will return from exile and the world shall be anew.
I fear the machine will start again.
Never. Humanity has learned their lesson.
That's what it said in the script. I really regret not saying humanity has learned its lesson. So, there's Kuna, there's Vashti, the main protagonist. He lived on the other side of the world, tried to get his mum to visit. She didn't want to leave her room because she doesn't like going out into the outside world. She finally relented, went to visit him, and he said, I think the machine's going to stop. She was like, heresy, don't speak such ugly words. He was like, no, seriously, I think it's going to break, and I really want to engage with the outside world. And so when people get banished from the machine, they end up just being sent out into the wilderness, and they're called the homeless. And so the final experience is coming to the surface of this escape chute and encountering the homeless. Look at them all there, approaching from the gloom. Look at them. Pretty cool, huh? So this is the hope in the post-apocalyptic. There's a hand, big ugly hand of the machine. Whoa. Eerie, huh? Let's go and take a look at these lovely avatars. So these are the homeless. And the rumours are that the homeless are starving and they have a miserable life out here. That's part of the mind control of keeping people inside the machine. Over here you see in the distance, that's actually a glitch, but we decided to keep it because it looks like lightning in the sandstorms in the distance. Look at that. Look at that sort of nuclear glow emanating from the destroyed machine. And then over here we've got our homeless, which are pretty cool, right? These are like in a post-apocalyptic world. The apocalypse taking place there. It's down to these people to rebuild civilization. Hell yeah! Okay, so let's go on to the final experience before we sign off for today's ep. Ding, 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 ding. So, right, now I'm going to show you the thing I made just the other day. So I've tried to follow tutorials like this on YouTube, but a lot of it went right over my head. Whereas on this occasion, I've got to the point where I can understand it. So, Beat Saber. You have to hit the thing with the right saber. Over on the red ones, up, down, right, left, down. So the position of the coloured tab shows you which way you have to strike. If you do it the wrong way, wrong way, wrong way, wrong way, it doesn't disappear. But if you do it the right way, right way, right way, then, and so the music is by my dear friend Nathan Flutebox Lee. The song's called Dog. It's available on his EP. Woo! So there you go. My favourite game in the whole world of virtual reality. And I recreated it myself in an hour, following the tutorial of an awesome YouTuber, developer guy, French guy called Valem. I'm thinking of adapting this for COVID. So instead of it being these blocks, it's viruses. And you're trying to control the viral shedding. Sort of an educational game based on Beat Saber that helps people to actually understand the science. That's what I'm thinking. I'm so excited that I made my own version of Beat Saber. So I think the next things I do, when I turn it into a COVID education game of sorts, maybe a mixture of swiping to music. Oh, got mixed up with my hands. I'm going to obviously change it so they look more like viruses. And then I'm going to have it so that you do a few beats in one direction, but then you have to turn around and they come from this direction. And then you have to turn sideways, they come from this direction. You have to turn up and you have to do it from this direction. You do down, you do it from this direction. I think it would be kind of fun. Woo! Okay, that's it. Let's go back to... exit game. Why won't you let me go home? Yeah, let's go home. So it's traditional at this point for me to sign off down at Tower Bridge. So I will fast forward and give you a little download. How am I going to review my own games? I'll review my progress. All right. Fast forward. Let's go down to the beach from virtual reality to reality. So there you go. I am not the best creator of virtual reality worlds just yet. I think you'll agree I've come on leaps and bounds since that first experience inside the brain. So I've kind of experimented with educational products upstairs in that big brain cave, and I've experimented with a kind of, suck it and see sort of experience where you never know what's going to happen next, where you turn the crank and the brain comes bouncing out, has a go at you in a slightly comedic fashion. I'm definitely going to develop that because, for example, Accounting Plus, Rick and Morty, that they do those genres really, really well. I'd love to try and emulate that. And I have to say, I'm very proud of what I've achieved in the machine stops. I know that, compared to, say, 11, something that I love, an experience I've reviewed previously, it's quite amateurish by comparison. But given how recently I've sort of started developing these skills, I'm feeling pretty chuffed. And as for Flutebox Enhanced Beat Saber, I am overjoyed that I managed to follow Valem's incredible tutorial where he built that in 10 minutes. Because in order to speed through it in 10 minutes, he points out very, very well all the different steps you have to carry out. But there are a couple of things where if I didn't know that at that step he had to do a certain thing, I would never have caught him doing it from the movement of his cursor on the screen as opposed to the words that came out of his mouth. In the past, I can't tell you how many times I've followed long tutorials, got to the end of it, click play and nothing happens, because probably some of these very expert game developers don't know how to break it down into simple terms for the absolute beginners and lower intermediates. So that's all for today. Excitement of finding someone who travelled all the way from Chelsea to Tower Bridge. You see, this is the difference between reality and virtual reality. Virtual reality, you have to program everything that happens. In reality, people make random decisions to go shopping on the other side of the Thames, and we get to see it down here. So, thanks very much. Good to see Brainman VR every week. As usual, I will return to the reviews starting next week we will, I've got a couple of cracking games coming up, I can't tell you. And what better thing to do when the world is hiding from COVID than get stuck into some awesome virtual reality. Catch you next week.
Live. Reality. VR is amazing. Live.